All right. Yo, welcome to another episode of Weird. I'm your guest. Oh my God. I'm your host, BradQuan, and I have a very, very special guest today, Chuck. He is a possibilitarian, a trans dude, an amateur entomologist, a solo parent, somatic activist, eco-romantic, relationship autonomous, tech imagineer, artist, social media growth hacker, and just ever the unflappable wackadoodle. And
You really did your research.
I did, absolutely. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here. How the hell are you, Chuck?
I'm doing okay.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yes. And I gotta tell you, so in doing my research, I peeped that you did a TED Talk.
Yes.
Oh my God, can you elaborate on that for me? That's pretty damn awesome.
Yeah. So I used to be part of a slam poetry group in Spokane called Power to the Poetry.
Spokane, that's Washington State, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Spokane, Washington State, my favorite place in the whole world. And there were just three of us who met through open mics. We were all performing and hit it off. And so we started working together and doing a lot of assemblies at schools. Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of refined our thing. And then we pitched for TEDx Spokane. We got in. And then we did our TED Talk.
Wow.
And it was, they had us train a lot. Like, we had to work with a coach and practice it like 20 times just to make sure we wouldn't mess up on stage.
Really?
It was pretty intense. But it was, it's like a cool thing to have on my resume.
No, absolutely. I mean, we watch TED Talks all the time. I mean, my God, I've never met anybody that's actually been a part of it. Are you from Spokane, or?
I'm from Idaho, actually, but Spokane's right next to Idaho.
Idaho.
So I went to school out there in Spokane and then started my career there.
What part of Idaho are you from?
Like right either side of the Snake River, like Moscow, Lewiston.
Huh. How was that?
Not great.
Explain. It's kind of help me enter your shoes. I want to feel what that was like. It's very rural, I'd imagine.
Yeah. No, so I grew up in a super rural community, pretty dry desert out there in eastern Washington, Idaho, Oregon.
Really?
Yeah, we could talk about foraging at some point. I'm very into foraging, and there's more food in the desert than people would think. But yeah, I just grew up, as like kind of an unsupervised child in the wilderness, wandering around Idaho by the Snake River. My parents were super young and like worked a lot, so I just took care of my little brothers and wrote songs and drew stuff and made art, and yeah, just was kind of a free child, I suppose.
Fair enough. I mean, you're definitely a jack of all trades, man.
Yeah, but I mean, back there, I'm a pretty unusual person, and some communities really don't appreciate unusual people. So I was not very appreciated where I came from. Didn't have a lot of friends, got bullied a lot, got beat up every day after school, that kind of stuff. And so, like, until I turned like 23 and got into improv comedy, I was like so socially anxious, so terrified. I would like sweat and shake around people. But then I got into improv comedy and I got into like business networking. And both of those things just really stretched my nervous system to tolerate more stress.
Okay.
And then it turns out I actually love being on stage. I love meeting people. I love doing crazy stuff. I love betting on myself, And it's like now that I'm getting close to 40, there's not really anything I'm that afraid of.
Really? How old are you?
I'm 36 and a half.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I never would have guessed. I mean, I don't know what the hell a 36-year-old looks like. I mean,
we all look different, trust me.
Absolutely.
Depends on how much sunscreen you wear.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm 32 myself. Wow. I would have honestly, I would have thought that you were in your late to mid 20s.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Fair enough. But my friend, that gets me into my first question, being that you provided a great segue with your experiences with bullying and whatnot. What experience most profoundly altered the trajectory of your life, and what did it teach you about being human?
Ooh, great question. There have been a few. There's going to need to be some backstory for this, but so the short version is I accidentally joined a cult when I was like 27.
All right, let me stop you right there. There is no such thing as a short version here. I want you to go as deep as possible, please, because that shit is interesting.
Yeah. So the defining moment was related to the cult, but how I got there was I was working in film and television, doing art department stuff like props and set deck, and 17-hour days, super rough boss. I was getting like groped and sexually harassed by my boss. I reported it. And then I got fired because they didn't want to fire him, and I was the problem. So they fired me. So I was like, well, I guess I'm leaving the film industry. And so sold everything I owned, moved into my Subaru, and decided to live in the woods for a couple months. And then somebody from the film industry said, hey, my friend is a writer from England, and she hates driving, but she wants to write about the American West. So can you be her driver? And I said, okay. And so I drove her around for a few weeks, and we ended up going to this festival called the Eco-Sex Convergence, which should have been a red flag maybe from the start. But basically the idea is that there are some people, you mentioned that I'm eco-romantic, which I still say, like, I have a very romantic relationship with nature. Some people have a very sexual relationship with nature, and that was what this festival was about.
With nature, okay.
They just experience sensuality, or they're more, excited in nature or whatever. I don't know what how deep you go about that stuff in this podcast, but
no, it's weird.
Okay. Well, yeah, if you want to get weird, yeah, some people really like being in nature and getting turned on, having fun.
Okay.
And so I didn't know what this was. I just went with this lady to the thing. But before that, I'm really into gardening. I'm really into foraging. I'm really into the woods. I'm into, non-traditional relationships, living outside of capitalism. And so the place where this convergence was held was called, well, I'm not going to say it because he's very litigious, but it was a farm that also had people living on it. And basically, I hit it off with all the people that lived there, and they invited me to become their new intern, live in a yurt, and work the land, help them build structures. And it was amazing for the first 3 months. It was my dream. I was waking up, feeding the pigs and the chickens, going into the kitchen, cutting up some onions, making breakfast, and then I was making a greenhouse by hand, and it was really satisfying. My mental health was the best it's ever been. Surrounded by all these philosophical, interesting people. We're reading books all day. It's really cool. And then at a certain point, the leader was like, hey, you've been here for a while, and now it's time for you to pay us back for everything we've done for you, even though I've been doing labor for them the whole time. And so basically it turns out that he was sort of trying to traffic people and sort of convince them to sell their bodies in order to pay for the farm, since he was so generous letting me stay on the farm. And so I really pushed on that, and I asked a lot of questions. And I was because I had actually worked with sex trafficking victims in the past, and so I had seen people who had been groomed and had been trafficked and had supported them getting out of that. So I was the wrong person to try to traffic, because I broke the whole cult by saying no. And I didn't have to say no in a forceful way. I just asked enough questions that everybody else realized that they were in this ideological bubble, that they were trapped by this man and they were being used by this man, not because I was mean, but because I was curious and I investigated questions. And so I really learned right then, there's things I want. Everything I wanted was there. It was the most perfect paradise of everything I could hope for, except for this one element. And with that one element of a person wanting to extract from me, take from me, control me, I had to throw it all out. And that was really devastating. It was really, really hard to give up that place. And I've always wished I could get back to a place like that. But standing up for myself and saying, absolutely not, you will not, I'm not going to subscribe to this ideology that you've tricked all these other people into. And so we all ended up leaving together.
Oh my God.
So I broke the cult by asking too many questions and standing up for myself. And I think that showed me right then that there's a lot of things that are not okay with me. In the world we live in today, I don't accept those. I don't consent to those. No power structures that don't feel right to me. And so that felt like a defining moment. There's a handful of others, but that's the first one that came to mind.
I mean, you're a fucking leader.
I'm trying.
You know what I mean? And just from doing my research, I mean, all these titles, your resume, I'm like, I mean, that immediately that came to my mind. I'm like, this person is a leader. This person is boots to the ground. You know what I mean? But this story really confirms that. That's incredible.
Thank you. It was very hard to live through, but it's a good story now. And I wrote a good song about it that I'm proud about.
What's it called?
It's called Entitled.
Entitled.
It's a a cappella folk punk song with a part where I get to scream, "I know you'll die alone." Ooh. And it felt really good to write that.
It's on Spotify?
No, none of my stuff's recorded yet.
Oh man, I got to tap into that. That sounds awesome.
You got to come to one of my shows.
Will do. When is your next show?
I don't have one. I'll let you know. I got to get this festival off the ground, and then I'll plan my own shows.
Rock and roll. So I got to ask you about the sex trafficking victims.
Yeah.
I mean, God, can you bring me into the day-to-day of helping those individuals? I mean, what's that like? I mean, I'd imagine the energy there. That's got to be some dense shit. You know what I mean?
It's interesting how I think it really illuminated for me that you don't know where people have come from or where they've been before you meet them. Because
Absolutely.
most of the girls that I was talking to and helping out, or, we were basically helping them get into new housing or helping them get access to food, new clothes, and stuff like that after we got them out of the situation. I was not the person who put this group together. It was actually led by a church. And a lot of these girls, they just seemed like normal girls. There wasn't really, you wouldn't know looking at them that they had survived that. And so I think it gave me a lot of compassion for understanding that most people have been through a lot of terrible stuff.
Absolutely.
And so having compassion, or if a person lashes out at you, or a person, doesn't want to accept your help or is acting kind of cagey, maybe it's not about you, but it's about something it reminds them of, a time someone had power over them or lied to them. And maybe you're coming from a good place, but somebody wasn't at one time. So you can't take it personally, if a person has a reaction to even kindness in a violent way. So yeah, I don't know. It gave me just perspective that everybody's carrying a lot,
Oh my God.
But
what's like the worst? What's like the most heart-wrenching case you've dealt with? I'm sure there's got to be somebody that stuck out to you.
Boy, that's an interesting question. I know at least so I've helped a lot of people with a lot of different things. I call myself a rogue caseworker because I just drive people to appointments and help them get access to stuff. With the trafficking girls, honestly, they never really told me their stories. That wasn't really part of it.
Okay.
I wasn't in like a therapeutic role or anything like that. It was more like helping with resources and stuff. I'm trying to think like saddest story I've ever heard. I don't know. It's probably honest. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I just see me. I always ask. I wouldn't be able to help myself, but the problem is like it's probably best you don't ask because you might be triggering.
Yeah, especially for someone who's so fresh out of an experience like that. They want to feel like it's normal. Like you're just grabbing lunch and talking about music or whatever.
No, I completely understand that. So, that said, what part of yourself have you had to fight the hardest to protect from the world?
It's so interesting. I was just listening to a podcast about this on the way. So are you familiar with like shadow work or the concept of shadow work?
Does this have anything to do with Carl Jung?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the shadow is like the rejected self.
That I know. It's funny, I talk about that. That's what I love to explore just with the questionnaire I come up with and everything. So I'm very familiar. Go ahead.
So I would say within my shadow, there's someone who's even bigger and louder and more audacious and more powerful. And for me, I have another friend who's kind of in a similar spot where we both really want to make a big difference in the world. Okay. But we also have a capacity to be too controlling or a capacity to be impatient, with this stuff that needs to get done. And so for me, it's trying to integrate how much power I feel is within me and how much potential I feel is within me without being a tyrant or over-controlling or over-patient, but also accepting, like, I'm afraid of how big I can be. I'm afraid of how much impact I can have. And so I've hidden a lot of that away. And part of what I'm trying to work through with my art is, like, how do I face my own fear of what I have to say that might upset some people or inspire some people? I feel like there's something in me that I'm still not ready to look right at, but I feel like I'm getting closer.
It reminds me of this metaphor I came up with a while back. If it's a little messy, please bear with me. But it's like I think of like a bug approaching a wall, just a blank wall. Just how vast that is, how overwhelming it is. But it's like the bug can't see the entirety of it. It's like tunnel vision. You know what I mean? But it's like having the knowledge. It's like you can only see but so much, but you know that there's so much more, and it's frightening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like this shit can. It's like this shit can like almost devour you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can lose yourself in it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's ultimately what it is, and as beautiful as potential is, I mean, ambition can be feral.
Totally.
Ambition can be dangerous, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's worth taming, but it takes work. It takes patience, and it takes fortitude. It's like trying to break a horse, almost. You know what I mean? That's how I think of it, at least. You know.
Well, and something a friend of mine brought up, we talked about it maybe a year ago after I gave him a tarot reading, is that if you're really brilliant as a child, you do get knocked down. You do get bullied. You do get, like other kids or other, people don't like to see brilliance in others. And so they will try to take it away from you. And as I've started to reveal a little bit more of myself and share more of that ambition, power, love, whatever, more people don't like me, or more people do try to take me down. And so it's interesting to have to navigate. I don't like it when people don't like me. I want everybody to like me, but I have to set that aside and say, not everybody is going to be comfortable with me taking up space or me doing what I feel like I got to do, and I have to accept that I can't make everybody happy and still do what I'm here to do.
There's a discomfort with people, like when you're comfortable in your skin, when you're comfortable being different and going against the grain, that rubs people the wrong way. You know what I mean? And they'll judge you because of that, because they view you as audacious.
Or because you're doing something that they are not allowed to do.
That's what I'm
how
saying.
Dare you?
It's like, who the hell do you think you are to live your life the way I want to live my life, but I'm too scared to do it? You know what I'm saying? I've been judged by people for the way I've lived my life, and then come to find out they're doing the same thing. I'm like, what the hell is this? But it just, it's one of those things. Like, I used to try to change people. It's a road to destruction. You lead by example, and the people that need it most, they'll follow suit. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, I mean, just living your truth fearlessly. You know what I mean? The people that need it the most, the people that really resonates with, I mean, they'll fall into it,
Yeah, and I get to experience that from other people who shine really bright and who are really brave. Like, I pick up that inspiration, and I feel it, and it comes out in my art and my work. And so it's like, if I can receive that from somebody else who's just out there vibing, doing their thing, I can also just accept that I can have a resonance with certain people also that I'm not even necessarily responsible for. My responsibility is to take care of myself, maintain my vital energy, and follow my intuition to the things that I got to do. And other people will feel about that how they feel about that.
Your art, you're an artist. Like, are you a painter, sculptor? Like, what's your medium? Is it just like a bunch of everything?
I would say ultimately my medium is experience. But I do poetry, I do songs, I do, I create events, I design clothing, I paint, I draw. I've drawn since I was a year and a half old.
Oh, wow.
My kids are also very artistic, and it's really, really fun to get to see them find their own creative voices.
How many children do you have?
I have a daughter who's going to turn 7 this week and a 2-year-old son.
Oh, rock and roll, man. Yeah. I love that.
It's really fun. My daughter's like a choreographer, and she's really talented, and I love seeing her, her brilliance and her light and her creativity. But to be a Copenspire is like, my brothers are the same way. We're sort of plagued by this horrible internal motor that never turns off, and we're super traumatized from our childhood, and so we just get overstimulated, and then we just make art to regulate. That's really, like, I'm trying to put myself back together by making art. And so I don't share a lot of my art. I put out one book. I haven't produced an album, but I've got, probably 30 or 40 songs. It's not so much about sharing it as it is making it. And the reason I say experience is my medium is I love doing live shows, but I don't record them. I just like it to be for the people who are in the room, and for it to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I love playing with the present moment, I would say, is my main medium.
I love that. I mean, where presence is, there's peace. You know what I mean? So, I mean, why not utilize it to the fullest of it, You said something interesting about the childhood trauma, which brings me into my next question. What wound from your past still influences the way you move through life today?
I would say the big thing is the people that were supposed to keep me safe when I was little are the people that, one of them, hurt me the most. And so I never really learned safety. I never got to experience safety. And so a lot of what I've done in my life is about trying to have enough money, power, influence, friends, whatever, to feel safe. And I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. But something I've noticed that is, I suppose, very interesting for the Weird podcast. So very recently, I've returned to a more feminine expression. And something that I realized is in Glens Falls specifically, I have a really tight crew of people who, if you came for me, they would make sure that you knew you made a mistake. And I've never had people be so viciously protective of me in my entire life. Never. Like, my family is not like that. My family's very hands-off or actively harmful. And so to have a crew of people that actually made me feel safe, I realized that I felt more comfortable being more myself because I knew that somebody would show up for me. But the rest of my life, I've been out here on my own. And I got, I've been hurt a lot. I've been chewed up and spit out by a lot of people. A lot of people have just grabbed me and done what they wanted to do. And that messes with your psyche, to feel like people will just take things from you if you're vulnerable. And so to actually be protected and supported by the people I am right now has allowed me to really flourish and bloom in a way that I've never, ever, ever had the freedom to do in my entire life. So I'm still learning to rest in that. And also, sometimes we have disagreements and I always think, well, now they're going to leave. And then they don't. And then we work through it. And it's amazing. It's so beautiful to have the experience of repair in relationships. That's new for me too. So I don't know. Yeah, my friends are really fixing me lately. A lifetime of pain is being repaired.
That's what's up. I do believe that I've come to learn lately that true love, no matter if it's romantic or platonic, are relationships where you can heal your inner child. You know what I mean? Where you can really roam free within that essence. That's real love. That's paradise. So I love that. I wanted to tap into something you said earlier that was interesting to me because I think I understand where you're coming from. It's you said that you wanted to get as far away from capitalism as possible. You know what I mean? Which I can understand, the anti-capitalism thing. Yeah, you've also touched on power as well as money. So what I see is, you strike me as, pardon me if I'm making assumptions, you strike me as somebody that leans more towards socialism or maybe even traditional communism, so to speak. I mean, you know what I mean? Is it fair to assume that you want to utilize capitalism for what you can get out of it in order to create the change you want to see? That's the mentality.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I write grants. Yesterday I just did a speech to the Common Council in Glens Falls to try to get some occupancy tax funds for Mindblown. So if I'm facilitating, basically what I believe in, whether I would say I'm a communitarian more than a communist. I believe in building really solid social structures of safety in small groups and making sure that we are all stewarding the land that we're on and the communities that we're in. And I don't really, I'm starting to learn, I wanted to save the whole world my whole life. And right now I'm just focusing all my energy on Glens Falls, making Glens Falls as amazing of a place to be if you're a weirdo, if you're an artist, if you're a queer person. I want this to be a beautiful place for people to exist. And I can actually affect that. I can actually impact that so much more than the whole world, which is what I was trying to fix before. And I think that there is a lot of untapped potential in our communities. And so we have to create opportunities for those people to become activated and involved in those communities and start lending their energy. And one of the things I love about Glens Falls is there's not really a lot of chains there. So almost all the money in Glens Falls stays in Glens Falls. All the businesses support each other. I go to your restaurant, you hire me for a commercial, blah, blah, blah. It just changes hands back and forth and we all have plenty. So it's capital or money is a means to manage that, but there is abundance in Glens Falls. And when there's more than enough, it doesn't really matter if I have 5 and you have 10, because one of us is going to buy the other lunch today.
Absolutely.
And that's just kind of how it feels up there. And I wish that vibe could spread. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just really harmonize with that and get that resonance louder and louder so that more people can see that it's possible to live in abundance with your neighbors and to, I don't know, I'm really big on foraging and gardening too.
Can you get into the foraging?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
So I learned foraging about 10 years ago, in the deserts on the West Coast.
What exactly is it?
So foraging is where you just find food outside that grows for free.
Oh, rock and roll.
And so
okay.
capitalism hates that. They actually made it illegal when they freed the slaves because they wanted them to be forced to participate in capitalism instead of just finding the food out there that is very free, pretty delicious, and incredibly abundant. So most of the weeds that we see are either food or medicine. So
wow.
I let a whole portion of my garden go wild just to see what naturally occurs so I can cultivate and understand what's coming up there. And a lot of it is edible.
Wow.
My kids know how to find the flowers and the leaves that you can eat. We have songs that we've written about them to help us remember. But one of the things that I truly believe is that the earth has more than enough for all of us, and the concept of scarcity is completely made up. In the event of an apocalypse, I'm going to be fine because I know every single thing that it overgrows all over that people are trying to get to stop growing that you can eat. And so the earth wants to feed you. The universe wants to feed you. The world wants to feed you and for you to be enough. And there's this, thrumming lie that we're all given through this, system that we're a part of, whether it's capitalism or just the corruption of the ruling class or however you want to put it. But the great lie is that there's not enough.
Absolutely.
And there's plenty. There's so much. There's plenty.
That's what's up. I wanna tap into. I want to understand. You described yourself as a
Communitarian.
Communitarian. What does power mean to you?
What does power mean to me? I would categorize it as influence.
Okay.
How much? Well, it's two things. Influence is one, like, so let's say I speak to the Common Council and I give my passionate speech about why Mind Blown is so important. If I have done a good job of being persuasive, then I am influencing them to give us funds to make our thing bigger. So I have the power to do that. I think the other thing that power is literally creativity, the creative force. Like, I can create something out of nothing anywhere.
Okay.
I can make art out of construction waste. I find food on the side of the road. It's like I can make something out of nothing. And so that is a power, to be so tapped into this is a raw material and I'm going to create something of value for either my soul or my body.
Possibilitarian.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm extremely well resourced, despite what my bank account might say. That's all made up, so I don't care.
I mean, you don't allow. It's like you'll understand the importance of money, but you don't allow money to hinder the possibilities that exist to all of us.
No, and I've been poor my whole life. Like, I grew up in a trailer park next to the dump in Idaho. Like, I've never had money, so I've always figured out, how do you get food? How do you find clothes? And now my house is this weird place where everyone drops off all their extra stuff they don't need, and then I either add it to my art collection, wardrobe, pantry, or I pass it on to the next, community action or whatever space that it needs to go, or the person. Like a person the other day, I found out that they were walking to work in the sun, and so I just asked my friends, I said, does anyone have a spare bike? I got 3 bikes that day.
3?
Yeah, we gave him one, and now he bikes to work.
Rock and
Doesn't
roll.
have to walk in the sun. And so it's like, there's more than enough of everything, is kind of my theory, and money, to me at this point, is not really relevant, except for paying my mortgage, which is, I gotta do it, but.
Fair enough. I wanted to. Jeez, are you kidding me? I hate when I do that. I hate when I drop thoughts.
Oh, that's okay. They fall out of my brain.
This is why I take notes and I literally, whatever. It'll come to me. Oh wait, no. This did. All right. So, is there within this ideal of being a communitarian, is there a sense of hierarchy within that?
So that's something I wonder about a lot. Because there are inherent power structures in every relationship, right? Usually unspoken.
Yes.
I prefer for them to be spoken, which is atypical. People aren't used to that. But if I notice that sometimes people will sort of give me power. Like after you get on stage, people are like, oh, wow, you're so amazing. And they'll sort of put you on a pedestal. And I often feel uncomfortable with people giving me that without consent. Or without an explicit understanding. Because sometimes people will also give you power because they want something back, and they also don't state that out loud.
Yeah.
Or they'll put themselves below or above you. And so I think I just prefer to be really honest with people about the exchange or the power dynamic. Because if somebody just wants to help me out with a bunch of stuff because they like hanging out with me, okay. that's fine, as long as we talk about it. You know, but if you don't talk about it, that's where stuff gets tangled up.
I always wonder because I've always, like, I love the idea of communism because everybody's on the same, is on the same field, right? That's the idea. That's the utopia. But like you said, like, there's gonna be a power structure in some way, shape, or form. And I look at something like anarchy, where there's literally nobody in charge, but everybody plays a role in the system. Like I'm paraphrasing, but I feel like that's about the gist of it. Am I correct?
Yeah. I mean, you could use Mind Blown as an example. So Mind Blown was someone else's idea.
That's exactly what I wanted to get into next. Please elaborate on that.
Yeah. So I ended up becoming the executive producer, which means every decision comes through me. Okay. I approve or authorize every decision. This is an entirely volunteer-led organization that was someone else's idea originally, who's no longer involved because he's moving away and was just a little tapped out this year. But so how did I become the executive producer? I'm decisive. I'm willing to take responsibility for, I'm taking on all the liability financially and the insurance policies in my name, you know, those sorts of things. So I think there are certain people like myself who are willing to take responsibility for the group project or who are willing to make decisions for the group project. And there are some people who truly just don't have that impulse or don't feel comfortable communicating it or just enjoy being a part of something but not having to make the decisions. And so I think leaders can emerge naturally just based on personality type and maybe even charisma. Because if I was a big jerk, nobody would want to do anything for me or listen to me. But I try to make it a positive experience for everyone who wants to help us make Mind Blown amazing, and it seems to be working. But I don't know. It's like, is it? I wouldn't call it an unhealthy hierarchy. I would call it, I guess, a consensual hierarchy, because everybody who's involved has consented to me being the boss, including me.
Okay.
But you know, if people were like, "Hey, Chuck, you're messing up. Like, you're out of line. You're making the wrong decisions," I would still listen to that. You know, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, thanks, guys." I'd love and trust everybody on that team, and they would tell me if I was messing up. And that's why we're, you know, such a good team.
Rock and roll. So, do you? Because you touched on control earlier. The idea of control. Do you? We're not. I'm starting to subscribe to this idea, like, we're not really in control of our thoughts. You know what I mean? We're not really in control of. We're really not in control of much. I guess being boss, how do you deal with control?
I love it. My shadow is a huge control freak. I need containers where I get to have total control. Like, that really satisfies a part of me that's in my shadow. So that if I have those containers where I have control, the rest of the time I can be like, that's not my container to be the control freak. But when I'm allowed to be the control freak, oh my God, it's so good for my heart and my soul.
Do you believe that we are in control of our consciousness?
That's a really good question. I think that, so I like to think of it on a scale.
Yeah.
So on the macro scale, we're all just in a big boat, and that boat's going somewhere. I don't know. But as you scale down and you look at what's within my hands, I could spill this on your piece of paper, I could drink it, I could throw it in your face. And so there's outcomes from all three of those decisions that I make right now with what's in my hands. And so that's where I think we have the ability to choose things. And I think that some people engage with that agency more. For me, I think of life as a big sandbox game, as a big everything's made up, paint with all the colors thing. And so I can do more because I believe I can do more. But if you believe that nothing matters and you can't do anything and like you're powerless, that's true. You know, you do really limit what is possible. But if you sort of just decide that it's all a bizarre game that you can do a lot of weird stuff if you want. I could just walk around naked right now if I felt like it. You know, what's going to happen? You know, who knows? I would love to find out. But you know, like that's kind of how I live, is like, what would happen if I do blank? I like to like set a hypothesis. Like, if I try to pull off a festival, what will happen? And a bunch of people were like, Chuck, this isn't going to work. No one's going to come. And then 600 people came, and we raised like $20,000, which was great. And I was like, well, thank God that worked. But yeah, I couldn't control what those 600 people were going to do that day, but I could create an invitation that was compelling. I could put together something that would draw people in and fascinate them, and I could do everything in my power as a control freak to make sure all the paperwork was done, to make sure everybody was called and knew exactly when they needed to be, where they needed to be, and that I put the right people in charge of the right things that I don't know shit about, like audio engineering. Thank God for Kevin Stevenson. He is my angel. Yeah, he's great. So it's like, yeah, I think that when I think about free will, I think you can choose to engage with free will as much as you like, and if you engage with it more, you realize you have so much. But some people don't care to engage with free will, and I think that's also a valid choice.
I think free will rooted in stability breeds a sound humanity.
I will also say that I joke that the universe or God plays tricks on me, because sometimes he will put me in a position where I'm the only one who could make the right choice. I'm the only one who could, like, I will be put in certain situations where I'm like, why am I the perfect person to be here right now? And that I don't have control over either, but I do have control over knowing in my heart and my soul what I'm here to do, and completing that task or that mission. And I don't know where that comes from, but it's definitely like, in me.
It's so interesting, your perspective on control and the positive spin you put on being a control freak, because we so often look at that as a negative thing, but I'm learning that everything operates on a spectrum, right? Because people that like to be in control, that are control freaks, they can be deemed as being manipulators and whatnot. And I was having a conversation with somebody recently where I was like, control freak, being somebody that is a control freak, is that the devil within them? You know what I mean? Because it can be that, but
Certainly.
you have this positive spin on it. Like I don't think I've ever heard anybody word it in the way that you do, which really aligns with the whole mind blown thing, because my mind is fucking blown. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm a little.
Hell yeah.
I think that's very interesting.
Well, and here's the other thing I'll say about control in that context is like, am I the boss of Mind Blown? Yes. But do I use cruelty or threats or violence in any way to implement what I want to see? Like I have this vision and I'm like, it's got to look like this and I want it to look like this. But maybe my friend is like, I think this is a better idea. And out of love for him, it's not exactly my vision, but I'm open to it. And I want to see if I can integrate his vision into my vision. And so I think an aspect of being the boss is also listening to people and not using violence to enforce this vision, but persuasion, collaboration, and even being willing to let go. Like I kind of wanted to charge for Mind Blown this year. I got outvoted. And I said, all right, if that's what people think, okay, let's do it.
No ego.
I don't know. People tell me I have plenty of ego. So
I was gonna say, what is your perception of ego? Because the ego is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master.
I would say if I become too enamored with my own vision to the point where I can't listen to other people, or I am becoming tyrannical, or if I just can't accept that somebody said no, then my ego is out of line. But it's my ego that is my fuel source for all of this. It is my visions, my delusions of grandeur, if you want to say it. But I'm setting these visions of grandeur and I'm meeting them. It's ambition is driven by a belief that I am capable, that I can survive anything, that I'll figure it out. And I don't know if that's rooted in ego or something else. I think ego, like many concepts, we're just told that it's bad, and I think that it's important to have a sense of who you are, what you'll tolerate, what you'll accept, and for me, part of being me is audacity, is being a little bit crazy, and I have fun with it, but there's probably some egotistical stuff in there, and that's where I have to check myself, and temper it or tame it. Because if I was left to my own devices, I think I could, go too far. But that's where ethics is helpful.
All right. That said, as both an artist and a thinker, what truth are you trying to uncover that you haven't fully put into words yet?
How do I maintain the field of love even when I am scared? Because I forget love when I'm scared. And that's probably just PTSD, honestly, you know? It's like I feel a threat and then I lose access to love, I lose access to peace. Then I really do need to control because I'm going to die. And if I don't control these variables, I'll die, is like what my nervous system is telling me. And so I feel that in terms of personal development through the work that I do, every day I'm stretching to expand my capacity for love and expand my capacity to experience fear without needing to perceive it as a threat that takes the love away.
That's a beautiful quote. I forget love when I'm scared. And that's a, I mean, how I can relate to that. God, it's like you just feel isolated within an obulette almost. You know what I mean? If it's not too much, I gotta tell you,
Crazy.
I would. The PTSD. I mean, like, can you walk me through that? Like, I mean, I want to understand that child that felt alone and didn't feel the love, because I've experienced that in my own way. I want to get into your shoes as much as I possibly can if you're willing.
Yeah. So I mean, I've lived through a lot of really scary, bad stuff that people shouldn't have to live through. You know, my dad was an addict and he was very violent towards my mother. I was the oldest, and so I protected my mom and I protected my brothers from my dad. And so now as a person, all I want to do is save people. All I want to do is protect people. All I want to do is help people. And so is that a function of my trauma? Probably, to some degree. But there's a point where I would say I call it like a PTSD episode or a PTSD panic attack, where I'm not living in the present reality anymore. I feel hands around my throat that aren't there. I feel a threat of violence that isn't there. And so I'm reacting with a viciousness to protect myself because I am scared for my life. And that's a somatic bodily experience that I had at such a young age, that when I hear a certain sound or I feel a certain way, I feel like I could be killed because there was such a threat of danger as such a small person. And so what's very interesting being a parent is that when my children cry, it upsets that thing. It makes me feel like I'm gonna die. And so I have to intentionally care for myself so that I don't get there. I have to have, like, my daughter can tell when I'm starting to have a panic attack and she brings me my AirPods because she knows if I don't hear the sound anymore, I'll start to calm down. But it makes me sad that a 6-year-old girl has to understand that about me, you know. And so she asks me, you know, why don't you like to play games where we hit? And I say, because it makes me feel really scared because of something that happened to me when I was little. And she's very empathetic, so she doesn't need to know all the details, but she understands we don't play hitting games with me because it makes me feel more scared than I should be. And so honestly, my very empathetic, incredibly intelligent daughter, who's both not of her own fault, triggered me a lot, because so many of my triggers are around sounds I heard as a kid, dogs barking, children crying, that kind of stuff. It just takes my whole body back to a place that is not safe. And so learning to anticipate that, get ahead of it, take care of myself, forgive myself, like there's a lot there. But part of why I love working with veterans and suicide prevention teams so much is that there are a lot of people walking around with really severe PTSD, and sometimes your PTSD makes you a huge fucking asshole. If you think you're gonna die, you act like you're vicious, you know. And like, veterans understand that, trauma survivors understand that, and there's not a lot of place in our society for us to talk about where these behaviors come from. And I always say, when I'm angry, I'm just scared. That's what I try to explain to people. But yeah, I don't know. PTSD is a trip, and it's you know, it's iterative. It's not like I'm instantly fixed. You know, depending on my stress level, I'm a lot easier to trigger. And if I'm less stressed, which I try to take good care of myself, but when I'm not taking good care of myself, you know, then I can clip into anger and fear a lot faster. So I'm very motivated to be well for my kids.
I'm sensing a interesting duality, and it brings me to It brings me to this idea. This guy, this podcaster I listen to, Charlemagne the God. He always says something like, "Were you raised out of love or fear?" And based on everything you're saying, I want to ask you: are you living out of love or fear? Because there's an interesting duality there, but like, which one really takes the wheel? Because it seems like it seems like fear does good for you too. I mean, I don't know if I'm just making an assumption, but
I think a lot of the fuel for what I do does come from fear.
Yeah.
And a lot of the motivation is from knowing pain and wanting to provide resources for other people to feel less pain. One of my brothers right now is in active addiction and homelessness, and I can't get a hold of him because he doesn't have a phone anymore. And so when I see people in distress that I can help, when I can't help my brother, it's like, of course I'm going to help this person because they're somebody else's brother. And maybe somebody is helping my brother over there when I can't be there. And so I fear where we're going as a country. I fear the future for my children. I fear, am I going to be eradicated, jailed? Am I going to have to leave the country, as a trans person? So it's like, I'm afraid all the time. I don't sleep. Sometimes I haven't been able to eat for 3 days because something scary happened a couple days ago. Like, I carry a lot of fear, and I do my best to transmute that pressure into love. And I'm more successful now than I've ever been in my life in doing that. But there's a poem that I read 2 weeks ago for a sermon, which is like, these words don't come from nowhere, but they're all I have to give. Like, I know pain. I know suffering. I have chronic pain. I have a fatigue disorder. So if I wasn't feeling well today, I would have had to cancel. Like, I know what it is to suffer deeply. And so when I'm well, I'm trying to reduce that suffering. And I think there is some fear in that. But I do think that every single horrible thing that happens to me, I'm going to use that as fuel to try to make a solution. Because what the hell else am I going to do? I'm not going to become bitter and cruel about it. I'm not going to give up. That sounds like worse than dying. So I don't know. That's just whatever I'm designed for. It's that.
Fear is not a weapon. It's a shield for you. And I think it's important to have that shield because our country is in fascism. I mean, how we've been in fascism since 1773.
Yeah.
This is something that my buddy John and I have, we explored that recently. And in fascism, there lie scapegoats. I want to ask you, do you believe the trans community are scapegoats within the fascism of America?
I would say absolutely.
Okay.
Something I like to talk about is like there are certainly like issues within leftist communities and trans communities that should be addressed. And when I lived in Portland, I think I actually experienced a lot of fascism because there is only may not be true now.
In Portland,
Oregon, and this is spicy. I don't think I've ever actually said this on the record, but in Portland, Oregon, there's only one acceptable thought. You cannot dissent from the one acceptable thought. Like all cops are bastards. No conversation allowed.
They're all shitty, that's it.
Well, and it's like, you could be like, well, what about this? And people be like, no, you can't even talk about it. So it's like, that to me is fascism, where you're not even allowed to explore a concept.
100%.
And so I kind of like not living in Portland in some ways because I feel a little bit more freedom to just explore an idea or talk to people who are very different from me. I talk with Red Hat MAGA people all the time, and they love me. And part of why they love me is that I'm breaking their idea of what a trans person could be, because broadly, trans people are just hanging out. We're just vibing. We're just trying to go to the grocery store like anybody else. But the narrative that is projected from the propaganda machine is that we're here to eat your kids and blah. It's like they just paint us as these horrible monsters that are out of our minds and mentally ill. It's like, bro, everybody's mentally ill. First of all, like everyone's dealing with stuff. Everyone's got things to work through. But I think it's the threat of people who do not comply with binary gender identities that lead to basically like oppression. Like, we don't consent to those oppressive binaries. And I think it's fine if people want to play with the binary. If you want to be a guy and be a super guy, have fun with that. But if you want to be a super guy and also wear heels, I love that too. Like, so we're breaking the rules that are needed in order to oppress probably mostly women, I would say. And so that's a threat to the powers that be. We don't follow the rules that we're supposed to in order to keep society the way that it is so that they can continue controlling things. So that's where control gets out of hand, is they want to control my agency to express myself. And they don't get to do that, is how I feel about it. But yeah, I think trans people are really easy scapegoats because most people have never talked to one. Many trans people are also in the autistic community, which is also a scapegoated community.
I think we're all on the autistic spectrum.
There's a lot of people on the spectrum for sure, but we do notice a really high co-occurrence of trans identity, autistic experience, and actually chronic pain and disabled experience. And there are people who are working to understand why that is. My thought is that a lot of autistic people don't like to follow rules that don't make any sense, and some gender is rules that don't make any sense.
Absolutely.
So I think that's part of it, but we're hard to understand. We're different. We communicate differently, and so we're really easy to... People talk about us, but they don't talk to us. And that's part of why I like to be loud, and I like to tell my story, and I like to surprise people with what a trans person can be. Because I don't think the stories they're telling about us are true. I'm not trying to put a litter box in the classroom and stuff like that, or nobody's trying to hurt anybody in a bathroom. You know, like that's one of my least favorite arguments is like if a man wanted to assault a woman, he wouldn't go through the pain and ostracization of transitioning just to hurt a woman. You can hurt a woman for free anytime. Why would you go through that? Like that's like trans women are some of the most vulnerable people on this planet, and if you really talk to them and you really look them in the eyes, they're so gorgeous and brilliant and brave and just like I love trans women. I would defend them to the ends of the earth. Some of them are loud, annoying, you know, blah blah blah, just like any other person. Any person in any group can be whatever, you know. But and honestly, a lot of trans people on Twitter went too far with some jokes that I think people took too seriously. Okay. And some trans people really are problematic also. Just like every single group. Yeah. Like so I'm not saying that all trans people are perfect. I'm just saying most of us are just boring, actually. Most of us don't have any impact on your life, and you really don't need to worry about us. And I'm just a goofy guy who takes up a lot of space, so...
You said something about people thinking like trans people want to like eat your kids.
That's a hyperbole, but like
fair enough. What the hell is because there is an ideology that there's a connection between the trans community and pedophilia.
Yeah.
What can you elaborate on that? Because I've never.
I think famously most pedophiles are just men. Again, I don't know if people have looked at the numbers, but it's mostly just men. I don't really know about that. I mean, where people think trans people... Well, I don't know why there is that narrative that queer and trans people want children to become queer and trans. It's that, like, if I met a kid who is queer or trans, of course I'm going to mentor them. Of course I'm going to be a person they can talk to about what they're experiencing. But I'm not like, hey kid, you should be trans. Like my daughter is the most girly girl in the world. I gave her every opportunity, gave her everything. I was like, here's the Tonka trucks and dinosaurs, here's the teacups and princess stuff. And she was like, fuck those dinosaurs. I'm only about the teacups and princesses and goth stuff. And I was like, okay girl, that's you. And then my son, he loves wearing florals. But he also likes wearing cargo pants. And he puts them together at the same time. And he has a long mullet. You know, and he likes everything. He likes, you know, having his hair braided, and he likes getting in the mud. And so I think, like, I don't think that people exploring their expression should really even be a topic of interest. We're just difficult to understand and confusing, and so that makes it easy to villainize us.
Yeah, because, you know, it's a common narrative that there's an agenda, you know what I mean, of people, trans people, or people that wear drag that are trying to sexualize children. You know what I mean? Have you ever...
Unlike children's beauty pageants, you know, which totally don't sexualize children.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. No one's ever made... Okay.
I don't know.
Have you heard of drag story time?
Uh-huh.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if the drag queen is wearing, like, appropriate clothing and reading an appropriate story, that's great. My daughter loves drag queens because she loves makeup and hair and glitter, and so when she sees a drag queen, she thinks they're a superhero because they're so tall, they're so powerful, and so she's really inspired by drag queens, and she loves to get more girly after she sees a drag queen. I think that there are drag performances that are absolutely not appropriate for children, just like there's musical performances and art that are not appropriate for children. You know, at Mind Blown, I'm trying to let people know most of the kid-friendly acts are before 2 p.m. After that, it's a little peppery, you know? You kind of choose your own adventure on that if you got a little one. But yeah, I don't think that Drag Queen Story Hour, if it's not inherently sexual, the way that they're dressed or reading, I don't see it as anything more than like bringing a clown in. You know, it's just a performance art. It's just dressing up, you know. But if there was sexuality, you know, if they're talking about something sexual or wearing something that shows a lot of like their body that's not appropriate for a child to see, then I would say that's not appropriate for children, you know.
You know, just to kind of bridge the divide, right? Do you remember when the San Francisco Gay Choir did that? I'm not even sure if you heard about this, but they did this this piece, and it was filmed like with the whole choir, and they explicitly said, "We're coming for your children." Now, not to assume
Sure.
what they were saying, but is it fair to say that, and you know, you will see children at explicit drag shows. Is it fair to say that there is some legitimate concern over how this might be presented to children?
I would say that there are some queer people that enjoy making straight people uncomfortable. I will say that there are some queer people who are coming from a weird place when it comes to wanting to be accepted or wanting to challenge people, where I think that they might go a little bit too far, or sometimes a lot too far. And you can see that in other creative communities as well.
Absolutely.
I don't know about that chorus thing about them saying we're coming for your children. Do you know if they were being facetious?
More than likely, I mean, let's assume they were, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, it does kind of create this.
It doesn't help the narrative.
Exactly.
And that's what I mean about sometimes trans people on Twitter went too far trying to be funny, and people took them seriously.
Exactly.
And I think they really ruined it for all of us, unfortunately. Because I would love to just feel safe. That'd be
Yes.
great. But yeah, I mean, I think there are some people who are either trying to be funny or who are in a lot of pain. And that pain drives them to be antisocial.
Yeah.
But I would not say that that is related to any grand agenda more than it is someone else's just specific unwellness,
Okay.
in my experience. No one's ever brought me into a room and said, "Hey, Chuck, we've got this initiative where we want to get 40% more gay kids in Glens Falls. What do you think?" You know, like, no, we're not having those meetings. I would be invited.
Just like in your opinion, do you think it's fair to say that, you know, as a protective parent, I don't have kids, but you know, parents get very defensive. Is it fair to say that that's somewhat understandable that some people might develop a more defensive kind of mindset around this, just based on what you might see on social media, take it maybe too seriously, and then that creates these issues, you know what I mean?
I think that, and I think that there are times that, you know, at Pride, there are individuals who want to express themselves in an overtly sexual way.
Yes.
And then I think as a parent, you have to ask yourself, you know, how do I talk to my children about sexuality? How do I talk to my children about self-expression that a person can do? What is appropriate for my child? Should I bring my child to this event where we can have a conversation about what they're seeing? Like my daughter has been to real drag shows, and she's also been to Portland where nude beaches are super common. So for her, the human body isn't explicitly sexual or offensive. So I think, like, for me as a parent, I can gauge, like, if this is too much for her or not. I took her to a DIY punk show with, like, screamo guys punching each other two weeks ago, but it was in a field, so we stood 20 feet back from the mosh pit so she could see what a mosh pit is. And we talked about, why do people do this, and what is this about? And we gave her headphones, and when she was overstimulated, we walked away. You know, as a parent, I can introduce her to an experience that might be challenging for her and help her understand my understanding of that space. But our children are always going to be introduced to stuff that is disturbing, or, you know, kids see stuff, kids hear stuff, they hear stuff from other kids. And so, as a parent, what do we do for our kids when they come to see something that doesn't make sense to them? And I think, you know, as an event organizer, I have a responsibility to make sure that people are making informed decisions about what they're exposing their kids to. And I would say that's true for every other event organizer of queer, punk, metal, whatever fringe, you know, community you're trying to represent. You have a responsibility to let people know what they're getting into so they can decide if that's right for them or their kids or not.
Okay.
And sometimes people just go off the rails. You might invite people to a Pride thing, and then some random person does something crazy. You know, somebody pulled a chainsaw on me at a protest once with my daughter. You know, so it's like, when I went to, it was her first protest. We've never been to another one. Could anybody have predicted that man would pop out of his car with a chainsaw? No.
So somebody at an All Lives Matter, somebody at a Black Lives Matter protest, some guy that was All Lives Matter came through with a crossbow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. God, that shit's wild.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a violent world, and people are unpredictable. You know, you got to keep your kids safe. I mean, and it's not just queer people. You got to keep, you know, it's not, or that's not, that's a weird way to say it, but like, depending on your sensibilities, you might not want to expose them to queer concepts. For me, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, we're not talking about actual human sexual concepts. We're more talking about self-expression at her age.
I do think it's important to introduce children to abstraction, because abstraction is a part of life. You know what I mean? And it's like when you're introduced to it at a young age, it's normal. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that way, when you grow up and you see it, your perception of reality isn't rocked to the point where because we judge what we don't understand. You know what I mean? And when you're not open to certain things that are human, you know what I mean? We judge it and we condemn it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the way I look at drag story time and a lot of the other things you were saying. I feel like children need to be exposed to abstraction, to healthy abstraction, of course. But I mean, people are fucking different. But that's what makes us so unique. That's you know, our weirdness. It's so commonly it divides us, but it's the very thing that connects us, which is why I made this platform.
Yeah, that's what Mind Blown is about. Is I want everybody to show up as their true self. Like, show up as a clown, show up as a pirate, show up as a punk. Like, whatever it is that makes you feel like yourself, Mind Blown is a place to do that. You know?
Fucking rock and roll, man. Oh yes, for the viewers, the person that was asking the question behind the camera is my best friend / cameraman / co-host, John Kronozik, just so he's known.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, maybe we'll get a setup where we have more mics, but for now, this is just how it's gonna rock.
Yeah.
Very limited resources. We are growing in real time.
Making it happen, you know. Glad to be here.
Fuck yes. My next question for you, Chuck. When have you felt most disconnected from yourself, and what brought you back?
When have I felt most disconnected from myself? I think it was, you know, that I told you there was that moment when I was working in the film industry and I was working 17-hour days. I had just lost my job because I had been sexually harassed, and I felt so dead inside. I felt so confused as I was sort of going through the motions of working too much, not listening to my body, not listening to myself, feeling like I had to keep going because of XYZ made-up reasons. And so I remember there was a moment I actually filmed it where it was me brushing my teeth, and it was just me. I think the text I put over it was like, the moment you realize you're the only one responsible for your reality. So I was not happy where I was. I was completely exhausted. I felt unseen, unheard, unloved. I had no time for myself. And the biggest thing was, my body was screaming at me to slow down. And I was like, shut up, body, get out of here. I don't want to hear that. We got to keep going, you know? And so to deny that inner intuition, that inner voice, or what your body is telling you, that is when I feel the most disconnected. And so since then, I've been working really hard to, I call it like tuning my compass. And so I'm an extremely intuitive person. If my body says turn left, say, I don't need to know why. Turn left. Oh my God, I just ran into so-and-so. Wow, oh, that's exactly the person I needed to talk to have that happen. So it's like, I don't need to intellectually understand why I was supposed to turn left. And so the more I lean into that pure flow of being and listening to my body and my intuition, that's when I know I'm in alignment. And I actually say, when I'm out of alignment, it feels like I'm on the rumble strips on the side of the highway. Like, I get real anxious, and I can tell I'm denying myself, I'm abandoning myself, I'm ignoring this like screaming call from the universe, and I just can't do that anymore, or else I feel horrible. But I used to just be really, really dead inside and have no inner light. And so now that I have it, I'm very protective of it.
You describe yourself through many identities and roles. Beneath all of them, who are you when none of those labels apply?
I think I'm just, well, honestly, my experience of myself is I often forget that I have a body. I feel like just like a floating pair of eyeballs and a brain. And then I look down, I'm like, oh yeah, I look like this. And then people react to that.
You're just consciousness, you know what I mean? Is that what you feel?
Yeah, or I would even say like light or energy, or I just feel like a being. Or I often will say that I'm a data-seeking node. Like, I like to think of consciousness as there's this great central processing unit, and we are all sort of like an antennae or like a taste bud or something, and we're all here to sort of gather our specific data points. And so that's part of what draws me too, is I'm like, oh, I'm so curious about this. Oh, I'm so curious. I need to know what's over here, what's over here. And so I'm a seeker of experience. And so I'm here to experience being alive for this turn, you know.
I love it. What responsibility do you feel toward future generations, and where does that responsibility originate?
I would say that I think anybody who is born from the earth has a responsibility to care for the earth. That's a big part of my value structure. You know, I mentioned how the earth has abundance for us and it has food for us. And there are people who are choking and poisoning. Like, my daughter and I will walk by, spots of our town, and they have those little yellow signs that say caution, pesticide or whatever. And she will actually cry because she wants to pick that flower that she knows she can eat, but she knows there's poison on it. Or they'll spray them and kill those plants because they don't know that they're food. They just think they're weeds. And so for me, a lot of my stewardship is about reconnecting my children to the abundance of the earth so that we can steward and protect it before it's too late. I don't know if that's fully answering your question, but beyond that, I also think that it's my responsibility in this life to expand what it means to be free and to expand what it means to express yourself with the wholeness of your being and to be a demonstration of that, so that hopefully there are more opportunities for more people to continue expanding that after I'm gone, until we do find true peace in letting everybody just be who they are and have enough to survive.
You say responsibility. Use the term responsibility, like we have a responsibility, which I agree with. However, it can be easy to associate that word with putting pressure, with placing pressure on oneself. How do you feel about that?
In this day and age, we need all hands on deck. There is immense pressure. The time is now. Get off your ass and help. Like, it's bad. Like, you can't just be like, oh, I'm manifesting in my bath. Like, no, girl. Like, get out and like feed somebody, grow something. Like we need people to actively participate in making things better right now. Because as much as we want to think like, oh, everything I do doesn't matter, or like, there's too many bad guys, so what can I do? It's like, I don't care. Go talk to a stranger today and make them smile. Like, give someone a compliment on the internet if you can't get out of bed. Like, every single day you can do 100 things to make the world a better place. If everybody is in that mindset, we can start to make it maybe survivable. But it's not guaranteed survivable at this point. The ship is sinking. So we got to get going. We got to get your cups. Use your hands. I don't care what it is. Whatever's available to you. Like, get to work.
Ignorance is not bliss, people.
No. So I feel an immense responsibility to get as much done as I possibly can before life takes me out.
I like that you say this, because so often, whenever I would talk to people, family, friends, whatever, about shit like recycling or like donating stuff, you know what I mean? It's like, you're like, well, the world's already a fucked up place. Like, who cares? And I'm like, that's the mentality that's gonna destroy this shit a hell of a lot quicker. I feel like we can make our experience on here bearable, even though it's not perfect. You know what I mean? But I don't know. People are. It's so much. It takes so much to get people to see clearly in that way and understand that we are truly all in this together, Well,
and I think two important things to add to that are you must rest when you're tired. That is crucial.
Yes.
A rule we have for Mind Blown is nobody's allowed to hurt themselves on putting this together. So if you're getting burnt out, if you're getting sick, you stop. You take a rest right now, because we can't have you at your best if you're pushing past your limits. So do rest. Don't only work. And the other thing I will say is for me, it's really been helpful to return to scope. I cannot fix the whole country. I cannot fix the whole state yet. But I can really affect Glens Falls, and I can really affect my neighborhood, and I can really affect my little Discord server. It's like you can't save the whole world, but you can really improve your neighborhood. And just start there, or start with your home. Start with what's closest to you, what's right in front of you, and just try to make that a little bit better. Because if I put the pressure to fix everything, then I get exhausted, because the work is too numerous. But if we're all doing our little bits, I think that there's hope.
I cannot fix the whole state yet. That sounds like foreshadowing.
I mean, my political career could be anything. Who knows? I'm trying to be I don't know. I'm going to run for mayor as a bit just to see what happens, and then we'll see how far that goes. But I started playing a game 2 years ago, which was how many times can I get in the paper? And when my kids are a little older, my game is going to be how high in U.S. government can I get? And I mean, maybe it's nowhere, I don't know. I'll find out.
Well, what I'm interested, because you're somebody, you clearly marched to the beat of your own drum. You can be somebody that has these fantastic ideas and wants to incept all this change, but when you're coming into a political role, you're coming into an established position that's scripted. You know what I'm saying? How do you feel like, you being who you are, do you feel like you can really incept the level of change that you truly believe in within a scripted role?
I would say we are seeing in real time people who are breaking that script right now. And they're not necessarily people that I want to see breaking that script, but they're demonstrating that the script is breakable.
I know exactly what the hell you're talking about, yeah.
They're demonstrating that you actually don't have to play by the rules. And in fact, if you don't, people do respond to that. And so I'm just curious to see what happens if you come from a slightly less bullying place and a little bit more loving and expansive place. And, like I said, maybe I'll never get elected to anything, possibly. But I just think it will be fun to find out.
That's the beauty of necessary evil. That's the necessary evil of the Trump administration, because it lets you know that you can.
Right.
You can, yeah.
They just demonstrated, yeah.
It's funny. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
You remember the Obama "Yes We Can"? It's so funny how that echoes even within this administration. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, we can. Like, we can. Look at what the fuck he's doing. Yes, we can.
I know.
Wow, that's really awesome. I love that.
I just think any limits are often self-imposed, and they should be. I always say that you should interrogate your certainties. So people always say, like, Chuck, that's not going to work because that's not allowed, or blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, has anybody tested it recently? I'm just going to go over there and poke it and see. Because maybe I find out that, yes, there is integrity there. And maybe I find out, oh, wow, there's a little loophole. It's just Chuck-shaped, and I can just, doop, look, I'm a senator. How did I do that? I don't know. That's how I've done everything. That's how I got such a weird resume.
Fuck yeah.
You just show up and ask, and most people don't ask. That's the crazy thing. If everybody was living like me, I would get to do way less stuff because there'd be more competition. But no one's even trying.
There's a quote that a wise woman I interviewed recently said. She said, "I have never been ruled by the tyranny of how." I feel like that really resonates with you. I think you embody that beautifully. It's
usually just paperwork, which I'm not scared of. I actually love paperwork.
Interesting.
It's a weird special interest of mine, but I do enjoy paperwork.
You do it ADHD by chance? How the hell do you manage that with all the paper? I would go crazy with,
Well, I get a tremendous amount of dopamine from completing paperwork. So that's just something that, it's one of my things that I just get dopamine from. So
that's interesting.
There's
that's
that.
Fascinating.
But so I've been self-employed for 15 years, and I've learned a lot about how to self-manage my energy. But one thing I've learned is if I don't want to do it, I won't. And so, if there's something I'm working on and I'm like, wow, I could sit here on the computer for 2 hours and pretend that I'm going to try to do this thing that I'm not going to do, or I can do something I do want to do right now and then do that other thing later when that energy is there. So I can tell, like, do I have computer brain? Do I have move around brain? Do I have socialized brain? And I don't try to fight that state. I just use what's there. Instead of being like, I have to get this done right now. It's like, I literally know I won't. But I guarantee you, I'm going to have a coffee tomorrow morning and I'm just going to rip through it in half the time that it would take anybody else. When I have the right quality of attention for that task. But if I don't have that quality of attention, it's not even worth trying. And I just don't say yes to stuff I don't want to do because at this point, I just know I won't do it. I just won't. So I just don't bother making agreements that I won't complete.
Fair enough. That'll definitely save you a headache.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way for many years.
If your life were distilled into a single lesson for those who come after you, what would that lesson be?
Everything is made up, and have fun with it.
Everything is made up. No, elaborate on that. Everything is made up. I like that.
So that was the name of the sermon I gave 2 weeks ago. But everything is made up is like this place that exists. It exists because Rich decided it should, and so he created it. This podcast exists because you guys decided it should, and you made it up, and now we're here recording a podcast. My entire being as a human, of goofing off and trying all this stuff out, I made all this up. I made up who I am and what I believe and what I think. And so every single thing in our tangible and even intangible reality, somebody made it out of nothing. And so just experiment with conjuring. Experiment with, seeing what you can bring into being if you just give it a go. And sometimes you don't even get where you thought you were going to go. You go somewhere else, and that's also at least interesting. Even suffering is interesting,
Yes.
I suffer a lot.
Yes.
Regularly, and I just try to be interested in it rather than defeated by it, because there's no end to the suffering, it turns out.
Without suffering, we can't appreciate paradise. You know what I mean? Suffering is essential to humanity. You know what I mean? I 100% agree. You know what I mean? I obviously, I'm not trying to, plunge myself into
we don't need
suffering
more.
to the hell. You know what I'm saying? But like, it builds character. You know what I mean? There's definitely a purpose. You know what I mean, for it. And it's something to be gained. It's important to be introspective. You know what I mean? To be inquisitive, to ask questions about why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and to not be afraid to explore the depths of the shadows. You got to go into that basement and peel, and be willing to peel beneath that mountain of shit. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Because there's something that's shining within that mass of crap, but you gotta be willing to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, it's gonna be gross to get there. It's gonna be hard. You're gonna want to give up.
All dusty, you're sweating and shit. Oh God, the feeling of being like being in like a hot and humid space, and it's dusty and grimy. Oh my God, it makes you. It feels so dirty.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Oh my God, but we have to be willing to go there.
Yeah.
In order to attain wholeness, you know?
Yeah, and if you're going to make stuff up, there's going to be roadblocks, and there's going to be stuff you don't want to do. You know, like, I don't want to call my insurance guy back today, but I got to do that, or else we can't do mind blown,
Yeah,
C'est la vie,
I got a call about my vehicle warranty. Yeah, I got to do that, but I don't want to do that, but I got to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's always more tasks, that's for sure.
Oh, God,
The tasks.
One step at a time, 1 minute at a time, seriously. And my final question, a bonus, if you will. What possibility do you see for humanity that most people have stopped believing in?
I do actually think that there is a possibility for a living world where we do preserve the planet, and we do find a way to create like a universal basic income or something like that, where people have at least guaranteed housing, food, shelter, clothing, blah, 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 where there's like a safe baseline that we all agree to. Every human being should have access to this level of safety, especially if they're, disabled, traumatized, sick, whatever. Like everyone should know that they're going to be okay and not slip through the cracks. That's my hope. And I actually think if we don't completely fuck it up, AI could be the way that we figure that out.
AI's been coming up in literally every one of my interviews lately, and you're saying it in a very positive sense. Like, it could be a positive thing.
Every tool is neutral.
Yes.
Is AI being used neutrally right now? No. What is, like, Bitcoin and stuff being used neutrally? No. But, like, there are compelling technologies that could be used to solve all of our problems. There's just no economic incentive for it, unfortunately. Yeah. So if we could sort of expand beyond the concept of an economic incentive and instead say, what kind of a world do we want to live in? I think things might get so bad that we actually figure it out. I think that's my hope. And I'm just going to try to get as many people through that, threading that needle as we can.
Everybody having access to their basic needs, like you said, housing and healthcare and stuff like that. It reminds me of social democracy, what they do in Scandinavia, right? you pay higher taxes, but you get universal health care. You know what I mean? People aren't wanting for what they need. Is that essentially where you're coming at with that, or?
Yeah, and part of where I bring AI in is none of those systems are optimal currently. None of those systems are running efficiently. So if they were all funded in the way that we would want them to be funded, they would run inefficiently and there would be corruption within them, which would make them not work.
Okay.
So we have to like engineer them to almost be people-proof, so that people can't abuse the systems and ruin them for the people who just actually need them. But we don't have mechanisms in place right now for that. So I would say if we can think of it as an iterative process, you know, it's not just like, oh, the right person gets elected and then everyone gets UBI and everything's fixed. It's like, no, there's going to be way more problems to solve once we figure that out. But if we're willing to solve the problems together, there is potentially a really good outcome for everybody.
I mean, I do sincerely hope that we can utilize AI in a positive way. I mean, I try to use it in the most productive way possible. Like, I really want to go back to school, but I don't have the resources. So I'm working on projects or whatever. I'm writing papers, I'm writing poems, I'm writing stories, and I'm like, I prompt it. I'm like, through the lens of an Ivy League professor, please tell me how I can elevate this.
Sure.
Grade this as is. You know what I'm saying? Or I'll say, I want to test my knowledge on this philosophical ideal. Give me an exam on it. You know what I mean? And then it's like, I have this lust for learning, now that I'm older. And I'm like, yeah, AI is a tool that can certainly help with that. You know what I mean? There are positive possibilities that, you know what I mean, come from it, but it's just it's like we as humans, we just wring the cloth dry. You know what I mean? Just, you know what I mean? And then we just toss it and it gets all hardened in the heat. You know what I mean? And to the point where it just fucking snaps. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the shit that we do as humans, and
yeah, and that might just be part of the human condition. You know, it might not be something we can ever engineer our way out of, and that might just be something to accept and experience.
Jesus Christ. Accept the irrationality of humanity.
Yeah, and just witness it. Just be like, oh, look at that. I'm gonna keep doing my thing, I guess.
Or just natural fuck-ups.
I think as humans, we crave pain, familiar pain. I mean, we could get more into shadow work again. There's a great book called Existential Kink that I recommend reading. It's basically about how people will engineer the same scenario over and over again because of their like comfort pain, like the pain that they return to because it reminds them who they are, they know what to do when they're in that kind of pain. And so people actually do that a lot. So I think if people can engage with their shadows and the ways in which they do crave pain and suffering that is familiar to them, then you can do it in ways that are more consensual and less harmful.
I remember back in 2016, I was dealing with a horrible pain after my father died. And I was just dealing with alcoholism and all types of like really evil thoughts. I was ready to just end. I was fucked up. And I remember I got to a place of peace where I felt better. I felt at ease, but then I was like, all right, what do I do now? This is weird. I don't like this. I think I need to go back. Yeah, I think I need to go back into the mud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I get what you're saying. And that shit is for the birds, 100%. But it is a very human thing to go back to what's familiar. Like, that's our basic survival instinct. To go to where we're comfortable, even if that comfort is within chaos. You know, we seek, it's like, you look at people in relationships, they're used to dysfunction because that's what they were raised in. And then they finally muster up the courage to leave that abusive relationship, and they find somebody that treats them the way they deserve to be treated, but then they're bored. And they cause drama, you know what I mean, just to place themselves back into that situation. And it's just like, dude, like, what the fuck? Like, that's just the insanity that we live in.
Well,
you know?
And I think that's being unconscious. If you're like, for me, I'm extremely aware of my shadow archetypes, and so I apply them deliberately because they used to run the show and ruin my life. But now I say, okay, control freak, I see you, I love you. I'm going to give you something to control so that you don't try to ruin my relationships. And now me and the control freak have a compatible relationship within my psyche, you know?
I had the conversation with Art the other day. Like, yo, dude, the devil is gonna come and kick it on the couch. You gotta be like, all right, I see you. It's time to get the fuck up out of here. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have that. You gotta have that understanding that like you're gonna be here.
Yeah,
you know
you're
what I'm
part
saying? 100%. You know what I mean? But it's like sort of developing. I guess is it fair to say like a healthy relationship? I guess or like a
an integration. I think that every part of me that is bad actually has a really useful context. So it's just about finding the context where that part of you is useful, rather than saying you don't deserve to be here. It's saying, oh, actually, you're really good at this. Why don't you go here? Here's a project for you. Do this. And then it doesn't feel unfulfilled and it doesn't crave fulfillment through the rest of my life because it has its little zone that it's actually flourishing in. It's actually so good in. And so, you know, I like to have tea with my demons, is what I say.
I like the idea of playing chess with my demons. You know what I mean? They say life is a game of chess. You know what I mean? I feel like that would be a very interesting dynamic, actually. Oh my God, Chuck, this has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh my God, thank you for coming. Oh
no
my
problem.
God.
You know, just
Anytime.
One point I'm so glad you guys brought up, right? Your experience at that, what was it, that commune? It just goes to show you guys how close that can be to your own back door. Thinking about the Epstein crisis. Human trafficking is such an issue. If you are forced out of your home, wherever, if you're forced into a living situation, be very wary of the people you surround yourselves with, just due to that kind of atmosphere nowadays. I was very happy you brought that up. To anyone
It's really
who's
true.
listening that could come into play in your life.
Fucking right.
Horrible issue. Very, very contemporary right now. Very in kind of the mainstream focus. So it's great that got brought up.
Yeah, and you know, as we've been saying, like if we don't look at these things head on and really address them and admit that this is a part of what is going on, because people are buying these services and people are selling these services and these people walk amongst us, you know, and it's like you shouldn't trust everybody. And also, I'll just say 100%, predators should not ever feel safe at any event that I host or any of my community events. Predators are not welcome. They should not feel safe anywhere around me or my people.
Much closer than people think. Much closer, unfortunately. It's strange how out of control this is.
Yes.
It could have been for so long, but just now that it's so in the public sphere, like, be careful, people, you know.
And do not tolerate unacceptable behavior in your community. Hold
Get
people
away from
accountable, and you know, it's worth it to investigate. You know, if you hear an allegation, to be like, hey, this is something I heard, or this is something I saw. What's going on with that? Give people a chance. Don't just cancel people. But do not tolerate abusive behavior, especially if you steward communities with vulnerable people. 100% not welcome ever. I will karate chop you. Get out. Like, they're not welcome. Go get rehabilitated. Talk to me in 20 years after you've worked on it. But, like, absolutely not. My space is a safe space, and the predators are not welcome.
Rock and roll, Chuck.
Yeah, just,
Fuck yeah.
Can you plug your, what was the, what was it, Headspace?
Oh, Mind Blown?
Mind Blown.
Yes.
Just give us a plug if you don't mind.
Come to Glens Falls at the Shirt Factory on June 27th from noon to 9, where there will be 16 bands. We've got goth, ska, hardcore, punk, metal, and we're going to be demonstrating what it is to feel the fuck out of your feelings with other people who are also feeling the stuff that you're feeling. It's a place to express yourself. There's going to be experiential art. There's going to be food. There's going to be music. It's going to be really cute. And there's going to be tons of mutual aid and mental health resources. So if you need linkage to insurance, mental health care, regular health care, providers will be there also to help you get linked to that stuff. And we are partnering with Heart Support. So if you need long-term peer support, you can talk to the folks at Heart Support. We will be there for you if you're having a bad day on the day, on June 27th, or if you're having a bad day after that. You can always talk to us at Heart Support, and we will help you find the resources to get through it. Because we love you guys, and we're all going to get through it.
I fucking love it. Awesome. I love it. That is weird, people.
Yeah, we're going to get real weird at Mind Blown.
This has been fucking awesome, man. Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you.
Oh, my God. I think we're all wrapped up, brother.
Cut it?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Cut it. Yeah.